hope, passion, resilience, purpose, struggles, triumph, motives. Every person has a story, a reason for being who they are. If we take the time to listen, we can begin to understand their unique way of seeing the world. Welcome to the second chapter of the My Story podcast. I'm your host, Ari. Guys, welcome back to yet another great story, great episode. But before we go into it, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, like a typical YouTuber says for the podcast. We got to do it because if I don't say it, they don't do it,
They don't do it.
They don't do it. But as you might have heard just now, I'm very excited for today's episode. I have someone that a lot of advertising majors at SEMO has told me he's an icon. He's the man. He's amazing. You have to let him share his story. And how could I say no? I want to listen to his story myself because I have heard great things. Without further ado, I have Professor Simmons with me.
It's wonderful to be here, Ari, and thank you for asking me. I thought, I've been asked to be on a show. This is so cool.
I am honored you said yes, and I'm very excited to listen to your story.
Well, thank you. I don't know if I have much story to share, but I think you probably have good questions.
Let's see. I've always found out that everyone always has a great story, even if they think they don't.
I know. I saw the intro to your show, and I was really impressed with that.
Thank
and a little
you.
intimidating because I thought, what am I going to say for like 25 minutes? I have to make some stuff up. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure you have some great stories.
Well, the stories, yes. Okay. But I'm going to let you run this show.
Okay, let's start where we always start with our guests. What's your name, and do you have a story to your last name? Like, where does it come from?
Okay.
Or stuff like that?
Okay. My name is Michael Anthony Simmons.
Okay.
And I know you ask people their full names, so I'm going to give you my full name. Usually, I only hear my full name if I'm in trouble.
Okay. Makes sense.
Michael Anthony. So the last name, Simmons, it's really, really old, and there's lots of different places it might have come from. It may go all the way back to the Apostle Simon. It may be from a seaman. It may be from Shimon, which means hearkening and hearing. So it's a really old name. It comes to the U.S. probably from southwestern England, in that area. Nothing terribly remarkable about that. But Michael Anthony, I do have a story on.
Okay.
So I'll share that with you. Not that Simmons is boring. I love it. But Michael Anthony, neither of my grandfathers, not my dad, right? Where does his name come from? Well, in the late 1950s, and I didn't tell you, Ari, I'm older. I think I'm now the oldest guest you've had on your show. So some of my references may sound dated.
Okay.
But in the late 50s into 1960, there was a show on TV called The Millionaire. Okay. And the premise of the show was this kind of eccentric multi-billionaire would gift different people $1 million, tax-free, just here's $1 million. And the show, this 30-minute primetime show, would revolve around what happened to their lives. Now, it was a drama. Today it would be like a reality show, but it was a dramatic story. But his executive secretary's name was Michael Anthony. And this was the guy that would knock on people's door and then hand them $1 million.
Okay.
So my parents loved that show, and I guess they named me Michael Anthony thinking someday I would bring them $1 million. I hate to say I'm disappointed. It is... I might have cost them $1 million. I haven't brought them $1 million.
Okay.
But that's where that name came from, at least.
That's interesting. It's not so far off because something similar happened with my brother, actually.
Really?
Not the same, like in a show or something, but my brother's name is Christian, but you know how you usually spell it CHRI?
Right.
My mom saw in the credits of something, Christian spelled with a K without an H. So it's like K-R-I.
Oh.
So she changed it just because of that. That's how she got the name.
See, sometimes inspiration comes from many places.
Many places.
So
exactly.
So that's the name part.
Awesome. I like that.
Well,
that's really cool.
Maybe someday I'll have a suitcase of $1 million. I might knock on your door. Who knows?
Who knows? Who
That'd
really knows?
be a pretty cool gig, yeah. I might do that after teaching. Okay.
Speaking of teaching,
Okay.
let's bridge off of that specifically.
Okay. Wow. Boy, that was quick. Okay, go for it.
I was gonna do a little intro, but since you mentioned it, like perfect bridge into it, you know.
I'm the master of segues. So okay.
There you go. Speaking of teaching, a lot of students and a lot of people here at SEMO know you as the professor.
Mm-hmm.
But how did you get into teaching? What did you do beforehand? What did you study? What's your story there? What's your story?
Okay. So my first major when I came to college was education. Actually, it was going to be music education. So I'd been big into music, and I was going to be a music teacher. And for some reason, I got it in my head that I'm not going to make any money as a teacher. I should go into business. And I've always been pretty good at sales and stuff like that. So I got a marketing degree.
Okay.
So it's perhaps a great comedy of the universe that all these years later, where do I wind up? Back in a classroom. Probably maybe where I should have been in the nighttime. But I did some work in marketing and sales, and then most of my time was spent in advertising, working for advertising agencies. I did 5 years in healthcare marketing, and there were just a lot of things that went into that. I was shooting portrait shots of surgeons. I was shooting surgeries, in-surgery techniques, so they could document things. I got to shoot video hanging out of a helicopter and do all sorts of wacky things just in a hospital setting. And then I did some media sales and then went back into the ad agency business. So most of my time was probably spent in advertising and public relations. And it was fascinating because you might be in Virginia Beach, Virginia on a Monday, and then on Thursday you're in Seattle.
Yeah.
And you're, going on video shoots all the time. I wrote and helped direct and produce a 30-minute show that we did nationally, and we had a radio show that went in like 100 different markets, stuff of that nature. So it was kind of a cool opportunity from right here in Cape Girardeau to be able to go work for national level accounts, large regional accounts, and then even mom and pop stores around here. And that's kind of probably where my heart lies, is helping small businesses.
Okay.
But I'd done this for about 25 years.
Wow.
And Dr. Hollerback asked me to teach one class one time, what we call an adjunct. So just kind of like a one-off.
Okay, yeah.
Right? So I come in to teach this class, and I come in not with all the textbook knowledge, but with 25 years of doing this stuff.
Yeah.
And it just felt natural.
Okay.
And after I taught that first class, I thought, this is the coolest thing ever, because I have young, enthusiastic, excited people that want to be here. I've done the thing, so I can come talk to them in that regard, right? And I get to borrow their excitement and their energy, and I can share stuff with them that I still can't find in a textbook. I guess I have to write that book. I still haven't found it.
There you go.
There's lots of stuff that goes on in business that you just really can't put into a book, that you have to kind of live through and have those experiences and then get them to it. And we find that probably has a lot of application, because employers, when they talk to us now about hiring people, they need to have certain skills, but I need them to know how to work with people, how to do this thing and that thing. And working in advertising exposed me to people that think really differently. An account executive wears a suit and they play golf and they go out to lunch, and they're business people, they're salespeople. And then the creatives are all, they're wacky and fun, and they come rolling in late, they do stuff. And I got the opportunity to work in all those different areas. So there were times I wore a suit and went to see the client, and then there's times like creative, and I would wear a kilt and boots to work when I was a creative, because that was okay in creatives. I didn't have to wear pants. I could wear a kilt and be wacky. And I remember the account executive coming, hey, big client's coming, please wear pants.
Please wear pants.
Okay, fine, I'll wear pants. I wasn't much for piercings and tats, but that was like my
your
trademark thing, right? Just to be different. But creatives think differently, and the people that plan media and content, and you stick all of these really divergent people into one place, and they come up with magic. It's the ability to solve business problems, but doing it with an awful lot of creativity. And so for me, that's that beautiful balance. It's like, we're gonna do work and we're gonna get paid, but we're going to do fun work.
Yeah.
And we're gonna enjoy this.
So you graduated with a business major.
Yes. So,
But went into advertising.
yes.
How did that transition happen specifically? Because that was interesting to me.
a buddy of mine and I, when we were in college here, we ran a little advertising sheet called the Zip Sheet, and we would go around to all these small businesses, and they would buy space to put in a coupon, for haircuts and meals and stuff like that. Well, students always want to save money, right? So we would go out and sell these ads in this Zip Sheet thing, and then we would distribute it free on campus. And that's how I worked my way through college.
Okay.
Was doing ad sales, and then I would write the copy and help design the ads, that kind of stuff. So I did that getting through school. And the Department of Mass Media was just getting going at that time. So I'm dating myself a little bit.
Okay.
But I looked at business. I thought, I'm not an accountant. There's too many numbers. That's not going to work. But marketing and sales, yeah, I can do that. So I had a BS in marketing, and I went into a sales job after that, and that was fine. But the gentleman that I had worked with before the Zip Sheet, just on a lark, I kind of called him back. We were living in Minneapolis at the time, and I don't know, it was just too much winter. I guess, it's just like, I never thought of myself as a Southerner, but boy, I did when 80 inches of snow, 40 below, that's insane.
Yeah.
And I called him up one day and said, hey, I'm interested in moving back to Cape. Would you have any opportunities? And he said, yeah. And it just worked. And so we came back. That company now is Red Letter Communications.
Wow.
One of the agencies here, a good, really good size, sharp agency. But it was really small at the time.
Wow.
I was like employee number 3 or something. So it was very small. But it was just that kind of networking and that prior knowledge of having done something with somebody that then paid off.
Okay.
And I was able to move back. So that's what got me into the ad agency business. And then it all just kind of wandered from there, right?
Okay. So this has been stuck in my head since you mentioned it. You said you have the opportunity in a hospital setting to do different things.
Yes.
And you mentioned also shooting video in a helicopter.
Yeah.
Can you please say a story about that experience?
Oh, I mean, it's no big deal. We were just producing commercials for the medical center.
Okay.
And we had done a large expansion, and we needed new exteriors. And we had a medical helicopter service that was part of it. So I just called them up one day and said, hey, Joe, when you guys don't have a flight, sometime give me a holler because I need to get some aerial shots.
Okay.
I think he's like, cool, we'll do it. I'd never been up in a helicopter before. I mean, I'd flown in a couple of planes. It's really different.
Yeah.
It's really, really different. But it was cool to be able to say, hey, can you swing me this far over here and hang it this way? And and then I'm getting the video shots and then you think, what am I doing? This is crazy. But then the next day I'm in the surgery suite and I'm videotaping a surgeon doing a Batista technique in which he repairs the heart without stopping it. So typically what happens is they stop the heart, make the repair, and then jumpstart things. This is different because maybe the patient's too sick. They don't want to risk stopping their heart and restarting it. So he was going to do the surgery while the heart was beating.
Wow.
So he's literally holding this man's heart in his hand and sewing it back together in between the beats. And he needed to document that. And so the next day after, shooting out of a helicopter, I'm leaning over in a surgery suite right over the cavity, watching a guy sew a man's heart back together.
Wow.
And those are things that, they kind of stick with you a little bit. I think I skipped lunch that day, as I recall. Yeah, I did. I was like, I'm good.
I'm good. Yeah.
But that's how I wound up shooting video there.
Okay. That's interesting because in some aspects, I admire a lot of media and everything we do because, yes, there are a lot of professions out there, but media is what captures and documents everything or have the opportunity to do so.
Absolutely.
And that's amazing to me.
It is so varied. It's in every aspect of our culture and our economy. I mean, you really can't go anywhere. We just live in a mediated environment. And most everything we think we know, where did we learn it? Probably from media. Like, I've never been to Puerto Rico, but I think I know what it's about. How do I know that?
Media.
Exactly. So we get to do that. We get to be the storytellers, and we get to carry that kind of information. And I think that's probably what drew me to it, because I like stories. I think stories are the most effective way to share information, and that's basically what we do. Whether it's a news story or a documentary or a feature or an ad, we're telling a story to some point.
Yeah. It's a creative aspect in that way, but I will share this question with you, or ask this question.
Okay.
I've heard with a lot of professionals and that I've worked with, shadowed, and all that stuff. One thing one person told me, and it has stuck with me, is that if you produce anything, create anything for any company, make sure to always do it in your style. Like, there's some rules, obviously, especially in journalism, you have to follow. But there's a small window that you can add your style. Do you do that in your work, or how do you apply that?
Sure. So I don't want this to sound like a classroom lecture, but I'll share the idea.
Okay.
What we do is different than art. It's very creative, both of them. But let's say I go home tonight and I paint a painting and I put it in the closet and no one else ever sees it. It's still art, right? Yeah. It was a creative thing. I made it. It's not dependent on anyone else seeing it. But in media, we don't operate with unbounded creativity. There are a lot of bounds to our creativity. You have to write in AP style. I only get 30 seconds or 6 words. Oh, and the logo has to look exactly like this. And and the tagline has, and the client's favorite color is blue. And all of a sudden there become all of these kinds of restrictions to my creativity that makes me be very, very focused to what they want to do. So it's important that you always infuse some of your style into that. Otherwise, you're just grinding sausage, right? It's just
copy paste.
Yeah, there's no passion in it. There's no, and which I think is always the spark to creativity, right? You have to care something about the thing you're doing, and so if you don't put some of yourself into it, AI could do that for us then, and that's going to be our difference. Until they can program heart and soul into AI, it can write words, but I don't know if it can capture meaning in the same way that a human context and a human story can. But now you're making me be all poetic, and
No, I like where you're going, because I've thought about this quite a bit, because sometimes I've encountered people that they're creatives, so when they encounter a client, they're maybe a little bit timid and like, no, he wants it like this, this, and that. But then if someone says something that's a little bit different to their idea, they're like, oh, I didn't even think of that. Thank you. And we changed everything about it. So it was interesting to me. I really wanted to know your aspect in that, because
I would totally agree with that. There's an old saying in advertising: don't buy a dog if you want to do all the barking. And what does that mean? Don't hire people to do creative work and then make them do what you wanted to do. Tell them what you need and then get out of the way. Let them do their thing, because they will probably think of it in a way you wouldn't have, because you're too close to it. You are the client. You love your product or your brand or what, right? Obviously you're into it. But that doesn't mean that that's how everyone else looks at it. So oftentimes I come from the outside in. I want to know what the target audience thinks about something. I want to know how they relate to it. I know what they're going to react to.
Okay.
Not necessarily, McDonald's is McDonald's. They know who and what they are.
Yeah.
Right? I want to know why is someone going to stop there instead of Burger King? Or why are they going to get this instead of that? So I'm always trying to think of it from the audience side, kind of an outside-in sort of approach. But that also means we got to think in different ways. And you have to be daring to be creative. Now, as an example, and we could tell stories for about 8 or 10 hours if you want. I one time, and this was also in healthcare, because if you're in healthcare marketing, you spend most of your days trying to figure out how to say "we care" without saying "we care," right? Because you can't promise to make people better, because sometimes that doesn't happen, right? But what you can promise is that we'll treat your family like our family. We care about you. And I wanted to see if the CEO had a sense of humor. So I brought in these taglines. Yeah, right. You're already like, Simmons, what did you do?
Yeah. I'm like, okay.
So I wrote a couple of really good ones.
Okay.
And the last one was the name of this hospital, A Great Place to Die. And I said,
I don't know how to react to that.
I said, Joe, let's be honest. 20% of our customers don't leave. So if Aunt Tilda has to die somewhere, shouldn't it be someplace nice like this? Now, it was a gag. And it's a trick we use sometimes to make other things look better, right? It's like a little sacrificial that you throw out there.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
I'm happy to report he did have a sense of humor.
Okay.
But he asked me not to ever do anything like that again, right? And don't share that with anyone. In fact, I think the statute of limitations is out. I can tell you that story.
Okay.
But I wasn't really supposed to share that. But that's part of our job in what we do, is to look at things in a different way and maybe say it in a different way. And that's the secret sauce. That's kind of the magic we bring.
Okay. That's amazing. So growing up, did you always knew you wanted to be in somewhere related to marketing or advertising? Or did that just happen after the business thing?
No. I wanted to be a cowboy or a musician. Or, I didn't think that that's where I would wind up. The way that it happened was that there was an interesting kind of constellation of abilities and experiences that became the answer to.
Yeah.
I enjoyed writing, but not novels. Like my wife writes novels. I don't have that many words in my head, but I can read her book and I can write the title or the book jacket. I'm a distiller of information.
Okay.
Right? I can't take it. You can write 600 words, 1,000 words, 800 words. I'll read your 1,000 words and write you a killer headline.
Okay.
But I can't write the 1,000 words. It's just not in me. So I could write, but more in distilling and short bits of stuff.
Okay.
I enjoyed art, and I'm kind of creative, but not enough like to make it my business. And I can probably sell most people on most things.
Okay.
And I've got a little charm and schmooze. And so it turned out that all of those things kind of then fed into that direction. And then once I started doing that work, I'm like, oh, I got this. I can come up with ideas and I can sell them. That's pretty cool.
Okay.
So I didn't. That's not what I wanted to be when I grow up.
Did you mentioned you wanted to pursue music. Did you do anything like in your young age regarding music and all that? Can you talk about your music?
Oh, I started playing, what was it? The trumpet was the first one, like 5th or 6th grade.
Okay.
And I really enjoyed music. And I grew up, my mom played music all the time. I mean, it was just a musical household. And so I always heard music. And so I wanted to play music. And, it was a couple of years of that. And then a buddy and I figured out that there were 30 girls in the flute class and no guys. So the two of us went and took flute lessons for about a year because we thought the odds were pretty good.
Yeah.
So I picked that
Smart.
one up. And then a couple of other instruments and this and that. And then my wife just sings like an angel. It's beautiful. And she plays guitar. And so we play music together, and we'll go out and play different places. Our kids play different things. It's just, but again, not something where I was going to be able to eat off of it, but I love it. Okay. It makes my soul happy, and that's enough. And I'm not great at it, but I think it's great, and I like being a part of it.
Yeah, it's like a hobby, and it's beautiful that you get to share that with your family as well and your wife.
Oh, how cool is that?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's like the Partridge Family. We'll just load everybody in the van, and we'll go do a tour, and everybody plays different things. And so when we get together, that's one of the things that happens a lot.
That's great.
It's a lot of fun, yeah.
That's amazing. So what are some hardships you maybe have faced throughout everything you have lived through that has helped you filter your mindset or shape your mindset regarding life and your profession?
Okay. That's a good question, because I think we probably learn deeper lessons in that pain sometimes. And just offhand, when I was probably 13 or 14, a flash flood hit our house. And I got my sisters out in a canoe. So I put them in the canoe and pulled them up to higher ground, and we lost half of everything that was in the house, right? And for weeks after that, we would come home from school and, change clothes and spend hours trying to clean stuff up and wash stuff up and salvage stuff. And most of it you just can't salvage. It's ruined.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very painful because I saw my parents' sense of loss over what they had worked for and what they had done over time, and that in just a moment things can be gone. There was a pain of seeing things ruined. It's not just that they were gone, like somebody stole it. It's like you had to look at it in its ruined state and deal with that. But the takeaway for me was that I'm kind of an emotional guy, but I'm not very sentimental about things, right? The things come and go. And I think that shaped the way that I think about things. I remember my mom talking about, and I remember my grandfather. He died when I was young, but I remember him. And he was a basketball referee who had a very strong sense of playing by the rules. And this was a story that I heard a lot of times when I was a kid. And there was he lived in Paducah, which is just a little bit east of here. And there was a high school championship game going on. And he was one of the referees. And the home crowd, his friends and neighbors, were getting a little too rowdy. And he wound up putting a technical foul on the home crowd, his friends and neighbors, but because they broke the rules, that it didn't matter who you are, we play by the rules. Yeah. And I think that was one of those stories that I heard as a child that makes a difference. Now, you might have noticed I like to have a lot of fun. I'm a bit of a clown, but I'm also kind of Mr. Tough Love because it's like either do it or don't, but play by the rules. And that, so those sorts of things stick. Watching my dad say goodbye to my mom when she was passing, that was powerful, and that's something that stays with you. And it makes you very cognizant of, again, the things don't matter very much, but the people really do. Yeah. And so it's important every day to look at somebody and just I see you and you matter. And that may be all that I get to say, but that's okay. But that each day we should acknowledge those things. So I think that, and now as a parent, when I see my kids go through hard things, that's a challenge because I really want to jump in there and fix it or protect them or take that pain for them, but I can't. I cannot fix all the world's problems. I can't even fix my own kids' problems. And that's hard, but it also reminds us that maybe the most that we can do is to be there for each other. I can't make everything smooth. I can't make everything okay, but I can be there. And so those are probably those lessons that have come out of those sorts of things.
Okay. That's a lot of powerful things within those couple of minutes, but I thank you for that, especially when you were speaking about making sure you tell them, the people you care about, that you see them. That's so important. And being here, I've gotten the chance to make some new friends, and they have actually taught me, and Gabby, she is a big believer of saying or screaming to their friends, "I love you," right before the last thing or the first thing. Yep. She sees her friends and sees us. She always says, "I love you." And one time, for some reason, we're talking about why, and she said, "You never know what's going to happen." No. And I need to make sure they know. And that stuck with me. And so when you shared that reminded me of her. And yeah,
I think there's a lot of power to that.
Yeah,
and we can't take away everybody's hurts and sufferings, and everybody's got something. Mm-hmm. But I can look at you for a moment, human to human, and let you know that you matter, and that is powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that weighs so much, especially on a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Just to letting them know they're valued. Right. So
even if I can't fix all the problems for you or make everything go away, for a moment,
I see you.
I see you.
Wow. So kind of wrapping up our episode, what is some advice you can share?
Well, it probably folds into what we were just talking about. And I guess what I would encourage people to do, and I give professional advice all day long, and that's important. That's what people are here for. But our lives are bigger than our jobs And so I would come back to this idea that don't discount very small things. A smile, a couple of words. Don't discount that. Now, I'm going to tell you a story I don't share very often. Is that okay?
Of course.
All right. So for about the last 30 or 40 years, I've coached kids in a program my family started. And one kid had done very well in it. Now, he was awkward. He didn't have a lot of friends. He wasn't really very good, but he tried harder than any kid I'd ever seen, right? I mean, he was 110% every time. And every Saturday morning that I saw this kid, we would tell the same identical dumb joke.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Week in, week out. A couple years later, this kid has kind of come up in the ranks, and he asks if he can speak to the other students. So there's like 70 other kids there. And this young man stands up, and he says, I want you guys to know that when we talk to each other and share a little bit, it can do big things. And I'm thinking like, oh, yeah, way to go. And he says, here's what no one here knows. One day I went home and I had been sad for a long time. I was depressed. I didn't have friends. And I was going to commit suicide. I loaded the gun. I was thinking about it. And I thought, no one's going to miss me at school. My parents don't care. I don't really, well, wait. If I do this, who's going to tell that joke with Simmons next week? Now, Ari, I didn't do that much for that kid. Every week, we took 30 seconds to go back and forth telling the same lame joke. But it meant something to him. And it reminds me every day to try to see the people around me, because I don't know what you're going through. Today, before you walked into the studio, might have been the absolute worst day of your life. And I would never know it. But if I see you and I share just this much, it could make a difference. That young man did not pull the trigger. And he grew up, and he married, and he has beautiful daughters, and he contributes to his community. And all of those good things could have been lost in a moment. And what did it take? Nothing. It didn't take anything other than say, hey, buddy, and we tell the same little joke. But for whatever reason, he thought it was important that he come back the next week and be there to share that joke with me. I had no idea.
Just took a moment of kindness
That's
and
all.
sharing.
That's all. And is it really so much to ask all of us, any of us? Can you take one moment and just let someone know that they matter, that you see them? Even though I can't fix it all, I see you and I know what you're going through. And it was a reminder to me of that power. And it's probably one of the things that compels me to be a teacher, because I'm in front of a lot of people that I can have that kind of interaction with. So, he probably gave me way more than I gave him, because it taught me that lesson and to value that.
Wow. I have no words. Thank you for sharing that story.
Well, I know you thought I'd come in and just tell jokes the whole hour, but
I was not expecting to. So for some reason, they joke it with me in the air, and they're like, everyone kind of cries in Ari's podcast. I don't know. So I was not expecting jokes, but
and don't make any mistakes. I love to have fun, and I'll tell jokes, and we'll tell stories all day long.
I know.
But under all of that is, why does it matter? Mm-hmm. Because of this. And what a gift this is. We might never have met at all. And just by happenstance, we get to share a couple of minutes, and I'll remember this. I will remember what a very cool human being Ari was.
Thank you. Trust me, you will be always in my mind, I'll always remember you with so much kindness and fondness. So I'm grateful. Without further ado, thank you for so much for this episode and sharing all those stories and life lessons. See you guys in the next time. Thanks for listening to this episode. Make sure to subscribe, and if you want more stories, listen to Chapter 1,